Welcome and thank you for standing by. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. Today's webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be posted publicly. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. Now I'd like to turn the call over to your host, Crystal Jimerson.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on Using Census Data for Grant Writing. My name is Crystal Jimerson, and I'm a Data Dissemination Specialist here at the U.S. Census Bureau. I want to thank you for joining us today for the Back to Data Basics webinar series. The series was created by the Census Academy team here at the Census Bureau. You can register for any of the webinars at the U.S. Census Bureau homepage. Just visit census.gov/academy. We think these webinars will be a valuable opportunity for you to learn from our experts about how to access and utilize a variety of Census Bureau data products, tools, and resources. Before I introduce today's speaker, let's go over a few important housekeeping rules. As mentioned earlier, this webinar is being recorded. For your convenience, it will be posted to our Census Academy site within 30 business days. We'll post all supplemental materials, including the PowerPoint slides. In terms of how to ask questions during the webinar, you can submit your written questions using the Q&A panel, which is at the bottom center or the right side of your WebEx screen. Please take a moment to locate that now. Once you've found the Q&A panel, make sure you choose All Panelists from the drop-down menu. This will ensure we see your question. Don't send your questions to an individual panelist. Also, we ask that you do not include any personal or business identifiable information with your questions. Now, let's talk about the chat panel. Look for that on your screen now. It's probably right next to the Q&A panel. Definitely keep that chat panel open also, because this is where we will provide key links and other resources. Keep in mind, you won't be able to respond to the chats. Chat is just for us to send you links and other resources. In the chat box, we will be sharing throughout the webinar the link to our evaluation. We are very interested in hearing from you and how we are doing. My colleagues, Monica Dukes and Carol Miller, will be monitoring the Q&A panel. As time allows, we will answer your questions directly through the Q&A panel, or we will share your question with the presenter to respond to after the presentation. If we don't get to all the questions with a response during the webinar, we will post the questions and responses with the webinar materials within 30 business days. Lastly, near the end of the webinar, we'll put into the chat a link to our evaluation so you can tell us how we did today. We hope you'll take the time to complete, as we are always looking for ways to improve our training. As you know, we are in a virtual environment and sometimes technical difficulties might occur. If you are having issues, try a different browser such as Chrome, or consider logging out and coming back into the session. If you are having audio issues, try selecting the computer audio or calling into the webinar via phone. Now, I'd like to introduce you to our speaker, Ms. Marilyn Stevens. Thanks again for being here. Marilyn, you may begin.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited about this webinar because it's close to my heart. I remember my days of being involved in grant writing for a not-for-profit, and the competition was fierce. I mean, absolutely, positively fierce. So it's important for me today to share with you what I feel that I have learned over time. And the Census Bureau really is a treasure trove of information that you can use. And I sincerely hope that you will enjoy this webinar today and that you will call us back, and you may want to have private webinars as well. After we finish this today, I want you to know the differences between the three major census data source files. This is going to be really important. Also, I want you to know how to look at some proposal basics as it pertains to extracting census data, and then to understand how to navigate data.census.gov for simple and complex data searches. And then I want you to be able to really explore how to paint a statistical picture of your target population and to discover how to build a current data library. And last but not least, learn the language the census speaks, because we really speak a distinct language. And oftentimes I get calls and people say, I can't find this, I can't find that. And why not? Because you're looking at it from a different angle than what we have published. So let's get started. Census data drives key elements of a grant proposal. It helps identify the problem or the need for the project. It describes the target population and the community. It aids in substantiating problems facing the target population, and then it justifies the need for the project. It assists in program planning and design, establishes a baseline, and the best thing of all, I believe, critical for measurable objectives. So let's look at some grant writing basics. And I call it a grant writing basics 101. First of all, this is the one that hurt my heart when I was very young in this. Funders will not make a grant to your organization if you need the money. There's a big competition for needing the money. Or you have good intentions or you want to provide service. Then there's rule number 2. A successful grant proposal is well organized, planned, concisely packaged, but most of all, backed by supportive data. Put a ring around that. And then rule number 3, funders will make a grant because what? Your problem is significant, you have established your credibility as an organization, you have a solid plan of action with realistic timeframes and expectations, and your leadership has indicated a firm commitment to the project. And then rule number 4, plan your work and work your plan. And as you look at this outline for a plan, it's the last 3 that I'll be addressing today. The need statement, your goals and objectives, and the project description, they all can benefit from supportive data. Those are the 3 areas where data is going to be very to her about how we could assist grantees in building a solid proposal. Rule number 5, the need statement is a powerful component of the grant proposal. Why? It describes the population that will benefit or the target population to be served. It defines the community problem to be addressed. It includes both quantitative and qualitative supporting materials. And it details the situation in what? Factual terms. So you've got to be able to document at all times exactly what's in that proposal. Can you defend it? And that is always the question. And then there's rule number 6. Create a persuasive needs assessment. So you're going to use data to show disparities in the documented norms and the actual facts of your target group. What do I mean by this? On last hear about the unemployment statistics. So the national overall unemployment is at 3.5. However, in your target, in your service area, that unemployment rate could be 15 points or 10 points. So you want to show the disparity that although the national unemployment rate is 3.5% amongst our target group and in our target area, the unemployment rate is 15.2. And I will show you how to get those numbers. And then you want to match the project target area with census data to make assembling the data easier, even if the census area does not perfectly match the area you want to serve. So when you look, one of the things is that we say in census, we begin and end with geography. You must define the geography of your service area. Are you working in certain zip codes? Are you working in certain census tracts? Are you working citywide? Are you working countywide? Do you have a statewide focus? So once you define the geography, so let's say if you're working in certain zip codes, but you're working in various areas, that will be the closest to where you're working. And then from there, we can start to narrow down for your area. For instance, I looked at an area of a zip code, and in that zip code, there are more than 1,200 people that could benefit from the services that I would like to provide. So that's what you want to look at. Then you want to compile the data, only the data that will focus on the project. Because when you're pulling data, you're going to find a lot of things that will interest you, and you should pull them. Remember, we release these data every year. So now you're building your library. So you want to pull the data, and then as you continue to focus on what your needs are, then you're going to narrow that data down so it actually fits the exact project and target area and group that you're working with. The Census Bureau mission, of course, is to be the leading provider of quality data. We consider ourselves the nation's official statistician. Why? Our data is comparable, it's regularly collected, we are highly recognized and credible, and it's available and accessible, all for free. But these are the primary data products that oftentimes, I'm sure many of you get confused. We have the city censuses, and no one will forget the 2020 census. We do those every 10 years and years ending in 0. You may not know that we have what's called the population estimates program. And the population estimates program is an annual estimates program. Most cities and counties, of course, they know about it, and you should too. These are official estimates, and what these estimates show, they will show by county and state and the nation, where is the increase coming from? Is it natural increase, more births and deaths, or is it domestic or international migration? And let me give you an example. When the first Census 2020 results were published and the state of California lost a congressional seat, the first place I went to look was at the Population Estimates Program. Why? They're put out every year, and so you can track the growth in the area. So when I looked at the population estimates, I looked at domestic migration. California's lost 910,000 people. And I said, wow. But then I looked at international net migration, and they gained 1.1 million. But in order to offset that 910,000 domestic out-migration, they would have had to get 2 million international migrants in order to offset that. But they did not. They got 1.1 million. So that's what you want to look at. What's the population? Where are they coming from? Why? Because the area is changing. And then this is the next one, the number 3, the American Community Survey. If you have not been into the American Community Survey or you've never heard about it, this will be your new best friend. If you'll remember the old days of 2000, when we had a short form and a long form census, all of that juicy grant needing data was in the long form, all that social, economic, and housing data. Well, in 2005, that long form became the American Community Survey. And it has everything in it. It's like the long form on steroids. I just love it. There is no subject that you can think of that you would not be able to find a data point in the American Community Survey. And then it's housed in a lot of different products, there are ranking tables, which shows all 50 states ranked in about 90 population characteristics. And then you have the data profiles. There are only 4 in this particular file. There is what we call a demographic profile, a social profile, an economic and a housing profile, and we're going to really review that. And then there's subject tables. So even when you look at the summary, you may need to dig deeper so now that you can key in the subject and then get more detail. So think about that. Decennial censuses once every 10 years that will show you the growth over time, and the difference in the census and the surveys and even the population estimates program is that the census is the only thing that we do that we enumerate the entire population. We have to account for all 132 million households nationwide. So let's take a look at the American Community Survey that we affectionately refer to as ACS. These are the 4 basic profiles. And we have posted links to these 4 profiles in the chat. The first profile is demographic characteristics. And its table identifier would be DP, D as in David, P as in Paul, for those of you on the phone, 05. And this just shows you age, sex, Hispanic origin, race, relationship to householder, just basic information. And then there is DP02. What's really great about this particular profile, this is where I go to first. Not only does it show marital status and marital history and fertility, but something new that was added to the 2000 questionnaire, grandparents as caregivers. Not grandparents that actually not only live with their minor grandchildren, but these grandparents actually are the primary caregivers. Ah, you didn't know that. And then there's ancestry, place of birth, citizenship, language spoken at home, and then educational attainment. That's going to be a key part of your proposal. Veteran status of disability. And then there's DP03, economic characteristics. And so you have financial characteristics and economic characteristics here. This is where you go for median household income and median family income and place of work, industry, occupation, class of worker. There's some really great stuff in here. And then housing characteristics. How many people are living per room? All of these things help to bolster your proposal. And you can get that in these 4 profiles. For the places that I get lots of calls on often, I tell people, I said, take these, download them in the Excel when you click the button on our site, and keep them because you won't have to update them until the following year. And then you'll have them at your disposal. A lot of organizations and people don't realize it use census data for grants. So we just want to highlight just 2 of them. And in the chat, we are putting the link so that you can read these for yourself about Grant Steps Consulting Group, how they use the ACS data to help nonprofits win grants, as well as the St. Joseph Community Health Foundation and how they use ACS data to identify populations in need. And then you'll also be able to look at other ACS data stories about the fire department in New Orleans and other ones. They're really great. The Target Corporation, how they use ACS data. And then that will give you some idea of how people are using data, and then how to write in your proposal using statistics. So census data is key to build your data library. And like I said, we're putting out the releases annually. So your target area, you can pull out that data and store it in a file as part of your data library so that you can constantly go back to it, because the information you may need for one proposal, you may need some different information for the next proposal. So you'll have your full layout right there. And then you want to define your service area. And that's what's going to be key here. How do I define my service area? Remember, the census begins and ends with geography. And then you want to pinpoint your target group. You may think it's one thing. I talked with someone yesterday, and I brought up to them, have you considered that there's a secondary target group? And they had not. And then you want to build a narrative based on the characteristics of the target group. And then there's some questions that you want to ask. What is the target area? How many people live there? How has the number of people changed? How old or young are the people? What is their race and ethnicity, if you need that in your proposal? How about educational attainment of the group? What languages do they speak? How many single parents? How many households are low income? There are just a series of numbers to tell your story. What makes your target area different? Because remember, you're building a case. Are there low-income families that are more than a national norm? The older population, working mothers, overcrowded housing, high unemployment, low educational attainment, and disabled population, school-age population? What? That's the question that you want the data to answer for you. So we want to do a case study. The Helping Hands Mission Community Organization has been providing services to single mothers in the mission community of Anytown, USA. Presently, the number of single mothers that need help has increased. We are a full-service organization, easily accessible, and work to provide at least one service to those seeking our assistance. However, due to the overwhelming increase in those needing our help, we have created a waiting list, especially grandmothers raising grandchildren. Without these services, traditional single mothers, grandmothers, and minor children could lose the gains they are making. How are we going to build a need statement? First of all, we just got to define the need. And now we find that we have two needs. Single mothers with minor children that need assistance in a number of areas, just a few: job training, child care, housing assistance, homework assistance, education assistance really for the mothers, and other services. And then there's a second need we never thought about. Grandkids, they're now the primary caregivers, just like traditional single mothers. What are we to do? So let's get started. So we're going to go live. I'm going to go to the census site. I'm going to stop sharing this one. Let's see, wait a minute. And I'm going to go to census.gov, my favorite site, absolute favorite. And I want to show you something on this site before we get into the data. One of the things that I think that we need for this proposal is to find out what the poverty thresholds are. So when you put your cursor here on Browse by Topic, you can go over to Income and Poverty. Scroll down and click on Poverty. And when you get to the poverty portal, the first thing featured, poverty thresholds. What you have here are the poverty thresholds dating back, I think it is to 1959. And as you can see, from 1959 to 1979, poverty thresholds were computed by the sex of the head of the household, the size of the family, the number of children, and if they were farm or non-farm residents. Starting in 1980, that changed to just poverty thresholds by the size of the family and the number of children. So when I click on coming in. They're telling you how many children they have. They're talking about their income. Now you'll be able to see where that falls on the chart. These are the official poverty threshold. This is what it means to be in poverty. And you may want to use this chart in your proposal or make reference to it, and it changes every year. So it's that easy. So I'm going to scroll back to the top. I always like to go back to the home page so I can click on the census logo. It'll take me back. So let's go to data. Now it's time for us to really take a look at some of this data. This is our data main page. And once you scroll down, you'll see data.census.gov, which is the search engine, the major search engine. You don't have to go through the home page to get it. You can go straight to data.census.gov, and we call it DCG. And you scroll down to quick facts, and these are exactly what they are. If you need a quick population of a city or a town or a village or a state or a county, or the nation, you can go right in, you can put several in, and it'll give you some overall facts. And then we have other tools that, of course, the visualizations that we put out are the absolute positively best. We have the numbers and we know how to put them out. And then there's Census Academy. This is a virtual hub. You can stay on here. We have all types of videos with our subject matter experts and to learn all about how to extract our data. So you may want to come back to this. But for today, we're going to data.census.gov. And for this demonstration, I want to go to advanced search. Here we are in data.census.gov. Now, we put some things in the chat for you. And we put those data profiles for the American Community Survey, if you remember, right? So what I'm going to do, and I said we gave you the table identifiers. The tables that you use the most, those identifying numbers are going to come to you very easily. So I'm going to put in DP05, and we put that in the chat, right? And I want to search. And I'm going to say view. It's one table. I'm going to say view all tables. I know it's only one, DP05. But then I've got to set a geography. So I'm just going to do it for the nation because that's what's on the chat. And then you can choose, as you can see, you can choose to do it for a state, a county, a place. And this is where we talk about census jargon. What is a place? A place in census speak is a city, a town, or a village. Okay? Or you can use a zip code. You may be working in a metropolitan statistical area or a census tract. So you can do all of that from here. So I'm going to do the nation. I'm going to want the table. I'm going to move this filter over. I'm going to shut off the margin of error. So now we're in DP05. What is DP05? First, it starts off, and right here is where you can download it into Excel. But you want to get it for your area. What DP05 will give you for the American Community Survey, it will give you the total population, the estimate. It will break it down by male and female. It will tell you the ratio of males per 100 females in the area. And then you have your age cohort. And then you have median age. And then under 18, and then it breaks it down to larger groups. And then it breaks it down by race. Now, as of the 2000 census, every census is different. As of the 2000 census, you could choose to be more than one race for the first time in history. So from 2000 forward, we now have, instead of just the 4 or 5 racial categories, we now have 63 racial categories. 6 basic races: Black alone, white alone, American Indian, Alaska Native alone, Asian alone, Native Hawaiian, other Pacific Islander alone, some other race alone. And for those 6 basic racial categories, there are 57 multiracial combinations. You won't see a lot of multiracial in our literature, in our publications, but you will see 2 or more races or 3 or more races. The general category for multiracial is 2 or more races. Now, if you want to know what the breakdown of all 57 races, there is only one place in our products that you can find that, and that is in the redistricting file that comes out with the census. So right now, the only data, we're going to put out some great stuff next year from the 2020 census, but right now the only file that's been released is the redistricting file, and you will have all 63 racial categories delineated, and there's a number behind them, and you'll know exactly what those numbers are. So as you can see, the first category, when you add up the 1 race category and you add the 2 or more races together, that gives you the total population. So here are the 1 races, and of course under American Indian, you have the large American Indian tribal groupings, and then you have the Asian population, and then the sub-Asian groups, Native Hawaiian and the subgroups, some other race, and then you go to 2 or more races, and then they're listed the larger 2 or more race categories. But if you want all 57, you must go to the redistricting file, and that table identifier is P1, population 1, P1. When you put that in there, that table will come up, and I'm telling you, it's pages and it's great, interesting reading. Now, Hispanic or Latino with race comes up under the demographic profile. Some of you may not know that based on federal standards today, Hispanic is not a race, but an ethnic group. Therefore, Hispanics, we know under our guidelines, federal guidelines, Hispanics can be white, Black, American Indian, Alaska Native, Asian, Native Hawaiian, and the Pacific Islander, some other race, or multiracial in the 2 or more race category. So we separate out, because in a place like Florida, where you have a large, Florida, Texas, California, New York, even the city of Chicago, other places that have large Hispanic populations, most Hispanics identify racially as white. So that can give you a false positive. You look at the total white population, when you back the Hispanic group out of it, then that population can drop 30 or 40 points in those places. So now you have your it breaks it down on the large Hispanic groups, and then you now you have the non-Hispanic white, you see that in print, non-Hispanic Black, and now non-Hispanic multiracial groups. So now we have gone through DP 05. So now think about it, what I needed with that. So now I need to go to DP 02. And what I'm doing now is walking you through the table. Why? Because although I'm walking you through this table from the standpoint national data, you can get this exact same table that I'm walking you through, guess what? At the state level, the county level, the city level, and the census tract level. That's the beauty of the American Community Survey. So I'll turn off the margin of error. Now, this is where I can define my target group that I'm looking for. Households by type. And the number of households, and then how many of those households are married couple households. That's defined. Then how many are married couple households with children? And how many are cohabiting couples? And how many of those have children? And then you have a male householder, no spouse present, right? And then the single fathers. And then this is our target group. Female householder, right? No partner or spouse present. It gives you that number. Now, this is the 2020, so I'm going to switch to the 2019 because they haven't filled in all the blanks, and I can do that here. You can see how far back you can go, get these data, scroll down. And so I'm going to go down to the 2019 5-year. Now, so when I go to female householder, no partner present, it gives me the number, and then it tells me of that number, how many of those are single mothers. Does everybody follow me? you have this link. And as you scroll down, how many living alone, depending on what target, you may be dealing with seniors in your group. Now, as you continue to scroll down, you get to another target group that's in need, grandparents. So it tells you the number of grandparents living with their minor grandkids, and then it extracts those that are the primary caregivers, those that are responsible. And then it gives you a little information about those grandparents, how long they're there for the kids. And as you can see, they're not bringing them at 9 o'clock in the morning and picking them up at 5. They're coming in 2022 and being picked up in 2026. And then you see just a few characteristics about those grandparents. Now we go to educational attainment. This is going to be interesting. Why? The population 25 and over. You want to know this. How many people in your target group 25 and over that did not finish high school? That's going to have a bearing on the kind of grant that you put in. You may want to add literacy in the adult literacy in there as well. And then you want to take a look at college graduates, right? And the percent college graduates, okay? High school graduates, the 2021 number is 88.6 for high school graduates nationwide. Your target group, it may in your target area, it may be 50% or 60, much far below the national average. Bachelor's degrees down 33.1, and in your area it may be 6% or 7%. And all of those numbers go to provide something better for you. Disability status, all that's in the social. Place of birth. So you may have a large immigrant population amongst your target group as well. So you may be providing some other types of services. Language spoken at home. What's the language proficiency in the area? Of course, there's ancestry, but here's one of my most favorite. Of course, I guess you say, how many times she's going to say her most favorite? They all are. Computer use. What's the national average of people have a computer in their home? We found out that we had a problem during the COVID shutdown when the schools closed. Many of the parents did not have equipment at home. They didn't have a broadband internet subscription. You see what the national averages are here, but the question is, what is it in your target area? So when you pull the data by census tract and zip code, which you can in the 5-year estimates, then you'll find out how you stack up against the national averages, not only in the nation, but in your state, in your county, and in your city. Think about all the data points that you want. So let's go to DP03. And the reason I keep saying 0 is because we get calls and people say, I can't find that DP03 because they're using the alphabet and not the 0. So we say 0. Now, what you're going to find here as you go through your link, unemployment status. Of course, the official unemployment rates come from the Department of Labor, although the Census Bureau does collect the information under the current population survey for the Department of Labor, and that's why you hear about those the first Friday of every month. But on ACS, we do collect some data on unemployment. So you can get an unemployment rate here to use in your proposal for your specific area and use the official unemployment rate for the national area. And so it's commuting time to work, occupation, industry, class of worker. You'll see, and then income. The number of households and what the income is, and you have your poverty level, so you'll know how many will fall up under that. How many get SSI, supplemental security income, cash public assistance, or the SNAP benefits, as we once called food stamps. And then families, because, you know, in a family, on census speak, they're connected by marriage, birth, or adoption, and the household will be family members and non-family members. Health insurance, percent of families who are in poverty. Now you have your percent, and now you can use these. This is all on DP03. and it breaks it down into a number of categories. Related children of the householder, and then it breaks the children down, not just the minor kids, but those that are under 5. Now, as you can see, if the younger the kids are, it could those mothers are in poverty. But when you look in your service area, I guarantee you those numbers are going to be higher. They're more than likely to be in the 34% range. So that's what you really want to look at. So let's look at DPO4. Does it have some value for you? These are housing characteristics. And these are good. And let me show you why. Wait a minute. It didn't, let's see. Wait, it did not. It didn't load. Okay. There we are. Owner-occupied. Occupied housing units, there are most of them. The rental vacancy rate. It may be a low rental vacancy rate in your service area, so it's hard for people to find housing. And that's where you have that rate too. Another data point you may want to consider. And then the type of housing, 1 unit, detached, 1 unit attached, multiple units. When was the housing built? So if you have a lot of older housing, they may need more repairs, and it may be difficult for people. Number of rooms, and then owners versus renters. In some areas, the one that I looked at for the case study, the zip code that I used, the rental rate, I think, was 65%, 65% renters. And if you want to see how much people of their income that this goes toward their rent, on DP03 on the economic characteristics, that's located on that one as well. No, I think it's maybe on this one. As you can see, housing costs of mortgages without, and then we scroll down and we get, when we talk about rent, and then gross rent as a percentage of income. And as you can see, these are some good data points for you to use. Now you have it. Now you have your 4 basic profiles. So these, and now you can get these. I'm going to go back here to any geography. And then you can put multiple geographies in your filter box so that you can look at them at one time. But then I'm going to clear the box because we're putting in the chat some subject tables. So now those are data profiles. So let's take a look at some subject tables. Is there such a thing? So you can put in children characteristics. And then click. And now you have a children's characteristic table, and we put the link to this table in the chat for you. And as you take a look at the table, you scroll over, you'll have everything in this table you need. There's female household, no spouse present. All of that is here under children. Take all these characteristics about the children, what kind of households they're in, the racial breakdown, and some other things. Then we can also look at, I'm going to clear the filter, grandparents. We're going to look at grandparent characteristics. So, grandparent characteristics. Remember, on DP02, you saw grandparents as caregivers. Now you come here, and now you've got more information on grandparents. Now you see how important it is to research the data, to put in what you want, and to move from there. The data is here. We have a lot of data. What I also suggest is that you take a look when you go on census.gov, is to look at our newsroom, because we put out a lot of press releases, and some of those press releases pertain to the area you're working with. And then you can see how we frame on the narrative on the data. That's always a wonderful place to start, is in the newsroom. So we've given you a number of links, we've given you an overview, and I know many of you are really, many of you are kind of concerned, right? You're concerned that this is good today, Marilyn, but I need just a little more. So before you get too frustrated in looking for the data, we want you to call us. By all means, please contact us. And we're going to tell you how to do that. So I'm getting a signal that I need to just pause for a minute, and there may be a few questions in the chat, and I will take those at this time.
Thank you, Marilyn, for that wonderful presentation. There are many questions that are here in the chat. There were many questions that were pertaining to various geographies and how to access them. So is it possible for you to show how to access tract level data? There was also a question about
And go into, where is, I hope I didn't close out the other screen. Yeah, I may have. Let's see, did or not. Census.gov screen. I think here we are. Okay. So we're going to clear the filters. Clear the filters. When you go to data.census.gov, you want to go to advanced search, and then you will come to this page. And when you come here, then you'll see these subject areas, and you want to click on geography. And when you click on geography, now you see, of course, there's only one nation. So when you click on state, all the states will appear, and the territories. Everybody see? And then you can make your choice. Just click as many as you want. Or counties. And of course, you have to pick the county, get to the state. That's how you get to your county. And then your places, cities, towns, and villages. Choose your state. And then all the places, even what we call census designated places. They're not incorporated, but they are areas that people know. For instance, you may live in a community that everybody calls any town. Everybody knows what the boundaries of any town are. And so the county requested the Census Bureau make that a census designated place so that we will have data on any town, even though it's not an incorporated area, but it is established enough that people request data for it. So as you can see, you'll see a lot of CDPs here on the place. And then of course you have your cities and your towns. You can search from here, or you can scroll through it and select all the ones that you want. And if you want to search for a zip code, you select your state, and here's your zip code. Now, because when I'm selecting several zip codes, I just like to put in the first three numbers, you know, it's whatever it is, 331, 330, and then all those zip codes will come up, and I just go and just tick, 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 check, 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 and put them all in my filter. As you can see there, look, my filter box is loading up. Now I'll clear it. Does that answer the question, Monica?
Yes, and I'm actually going through, and that was another question. Can you select multiple geographies at a time or compare more than one geography in a table?
And the answer is yes.
Another question.
Oh, but remember
Okay.
this when you select multiple geographies. We have 1 year estimates in the American Community Survey, and we have 5 year estimates. So this is how it is. The 1 year estimate, which will be out, the new ones will be out, I think around September 20th, you can look, for 65,000 and above in population, those entities. Anything below 65, and every December, 5 year estimate. So if you're selecting the nation and you want to compare it maybe to a small city or a census tract or a zip code, the system will defer to the 5 year estimate. Why? Because the zip code and the census tracts and the small geographies are only going to be located in the 5 year estimate. So even the nation will go to the 5 year estimate. You get the nation in 1 year or 5 year. But if you have it in the same box with those other lower levels of geography, then it's going to be automatically default to the 5 year estimate.
Well, Marilyn, thank you for answering that. That was actually one of the questions I was going to throw out to you about the 1 year and 5 year. Another question, yes, another question was about specific geographies. Are you able to find information on tribal governments or tribal areas?
Yes, yes, you can. Yes, you can. You will. Yes, and I want you guys to give us a call, and we're going to put the number on the screen for Ask Data, and we will walk you through how to extract the data for the tribal government.
Okay, more related to geography, how about a school district or metropolitan area?
Yes, we do have some data on. Here's your metropolitan fiscal areas right here. Here they all are right here. And we do have some data that's available by school district. And so we want you to call Ask Data, and we will walk you through that for school districts as well. We work with a lot of school districts. Remember, you may not know that we have a Statistics in Schools program that is excellent. So if many of you that work in school districts, I have done presenting for a lot of the grant writers for school districts. We want all of your schools to be a part of our Statistics in Schools program. It's all free, great information, cute worksheets. I work some of the things myself. You'll thoroughly enjoy those.
Okay, and the last question that I'm going to give you for today is regarding census tract. There were a lot of questions about how do you find census tract data for any larger area? How do they go about finding that?
Right. I suggest that you get a census tract map. We have it. You can get it on our site, but your planning department in your county, they have excellent tract level maps. And when I was it was a not-for-profit, I kept one, and I had a large format, not an 8.5 by 11 or 11 by 17. I had 24 by 48, and I had another one that was 48 by 48. I want a large map because those tracts are not going to change for a whole 10 years. And then right, I had it on the wall behind my desk, and I can put posters and things as whatever I'm working on.
And Marilyn, is it too much to ask you to just go back to the tool to show how to access tract there? I know you were going through the different geographies. Can you just show where it was in data.census.gov?
For tract data, or how to access the tract data, or the map?
Right, the tract data, just in the tool that you were demonstrating.
Okay, all righty. Let's see. Okay, when you go to data.census.gov, advanced search, here's the geography. Right here, as you scroll down, here's census tracts. And once you get the state, then census tracts are listed by county. Yeah, census tracts are listed by county. Mhm.
And how to get presentations.
Thank you. And again, thank you very much, Marilyn, for this excellent presentation. Before we conclude, I'd like to thank everyone who played a role in today's webinar. And also, of course, thank you to you, our audience, for spending your time with us this afternoon. Please take a moment to fill out the evaluation by following the link provided in the chat. And also look out for the recording and PowerPoint of this presentation on Census Academy by visiting census.gov/academy. We want to remind everyone of the next webinar in this series called My Congressional Districts on Thursday, August 25th at 2 p.m. That brings us to a close. So we want to thank you again and hope you have a great afternoon.
This concludes today's webinar. Thank you for your participation. You may disconnect at this time.